Yo, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to look at the carpet auto crafting setup, and you can use this with either carpet mod with an add-on or by using quick carpet, and we're going to look at how you can add hoppers and comparators to your carpet auto crafting so that you can add crafting tables that have auto crafting capabilities and can auto craft the... So, let's get to it. Okay, today we're going to try and go fast, but this is probably going to be a long video. What we're going to be looking at is an implementation of an auto-crafting table that's basically just adding hopper support and comparator support to a crafting table. So basically just making a crafting table NBT, just like we have with furnaces and brewing stands. Like we can put bottles in a hopper and they feed into a brewing stand, and then you can put a hopper underneath that then takes the bottles out. You can put food into the hopper facing into a furnace, and that will then go in there and start smelting that or cooking that. But we can't do that with crafting tables unless we have the carpet rule to also do that for crafting tables. So down in the bottom left corner of my screen there, you can see the command to enable this. It's carpet auto crafting table true. You need either the add-on for carpet if you're using fabric carpet, or you need the quick carpet version of carpet. And this was implemented by Skyrising, and this is a really great implementation because it's not like a lot of the other mods out there for auto crafting where you just like give it a recipe with an item frame or something. This is a dumb table. Now, I say dumb table because it acts like other inventories. When a hopper goes to put it in, it's going to put it in the next available slot, and then the hopper will just suck out from the first available slot. The only difference here is, first of all, these won't stack. So even if I put stackable items in here, they're not going to stack up into the slots. So it's going to go one per slot. And then also if we put a hopper underneath and there is a valid recipe inside this slot, then this slot gets prioritized. So we can see right now I've got a block of iron available in the recipe there. If I put a hopper under there, I'm going to get that block of iron. But now I start getting iron nuggets, because it's just grabbing from whatever slot is first available since there was no recipe in there. So let me just put some iron back in there and we can see what's going on. So we can see there it's just filling up the table, and then it just starts sucking out some nuggets, and then it starts filling up because the nuggets are coming out faster than they can fill. And yeah. And then so we start getting some ingots, a pressure plate got in there. So that's what I mean by it's a dumb implementation. The crafting table itself is not smart at all. The mod was coded, though, so that we can also get comparator support, and that will then be based on how full this table is right here. So if we just have 3, then we get single strength 5, because we can get all the way up to single strength 15 when this is all the way filled up. So the comparator doesn't use this slot, it just uses these 9 slots to read, and we can use that to do redstone to actually get what we want out of this. So we can just feed it in with a hopper, or we can use, droppers to insert it. And then we also have things like if we want to make a chest, that's not a just pure recipe of everything being the same. You have to have this empty slot here. So if you were to put in a 3x3 of planks there, you would get nothing on the output. Enabling a hopper now would just suck out this item, and then this item, and then this item, and then boom, we would have oak trapdoors, and that's what it would pull out. So for those types of recipes, it's going to fill in there, and once again, we have valid recipes here, so we need to keep that output locked. We have there, once again, another valid recipe. There's where we start getting a not valid recipe, and then we'd have to put in some sort of dummy item, and then it goes there, there, and in this case, that's actually a note block, so this isn't a good dummy item, but let's just say the dummy item was like another chest there. We now need to actually take out this item, and then we can take out the chest out of the slot. Now, technically, we have 6 sides we can insert on, all 4 of the cardinal directions, as well as the top and bottom if we had a dropper on the bottom. But we do need the bottom to get an actual hopper in there to be able to take the items out. So technically, we have 5, and we could do some sort of setup like this to do the ordering that we want. But there are some recipes that still aren't even going to match that. So we just need to get some redstone in place. Also, for things like we saw here, where if we just put in a bunch of iron nuggets, we start getting random things output because the hopper is taking out of this slot as soon as it's available. And there we go. We saw some more come out of there. So that's why we're getting such a weird mixed output. And that's what these are for. So when you get the world download, this is what you're going to get. These are a bunch of different auto crafting tables. And again, if you want to look at these, make sure that you have the carpet auto crafting option enabled. I'm going to include a link down the video description to either quick carpet or the fabric carpet add-on for the auto crafting table. And some of these we're going to go through in detail. Some of these we're just going to look at briefly, but let's start going through the different options you can do with auto crafting. So here we have about 30 auto crafters that we're going to go through. So let's see if we can speed run this video. This is a block crafter and uses signal strength coming out of here, and then you go there. I'm kidding. Let's go through them in detail. All right, let's start out with some basic functions. This is a block crafter, and there's a couple versions here. One that's a little taller, one that's a little shorter, but they both do the same thing. They're taking things that use the same ingredients in a 3x3 grid in order to craft another block. And this can be really useful for coming out of your farm's storage so that you can compact that, because then you can use, 1/9 of the inventory slots. So things like an iron farm going into a shulker loader, you can already compact that. So it's great for those types of things. You can also use it, for example, like kelp here. We had a kelp farm on Syndicate that's, we still have, but basically what it does is it cooks the kelp that comes out of it, and then it crafts it into blocks, and then the blocks go back into the system as the fuel, and then the extra kelp blocks are the output of the farm. So we can see here what we have is we have the hopper underneath actually locked so that it doesn't try to take anything out of that table as it's going in until this comparator reaches signal strength 15, at which point that'll turn on, turn this torch off, unlock that hopper, and then it can suck an item out. Now, we do have some delay in here that we can work with because the speed of a hopper is 8 game ticks. And for example, here we have 4 game ticks, so 2 game ticks to turn off the torch. 6 actually, 2 for the comparator, 2 for the torch, 2 for the repeater. So we can get that out of there in time before the next item actually comes in. So that's why we don't have to slow down the input of this. But if I put some redstone up in here in this chest, it's going to filter down in. We're going to see it's going to fill in those slots, but it's not going to take anything out until it reaches that signal strength 15, and then it takes out the redstone block. This is same exact idea. Bottom hopper is locked until it reaches signal strength 15. This just goes more horizontal than vertical, depending on what your needs may be. And here's another example of taking a farm output. So here we have bones that would be coming out of like a skeleton farm or a wither skeleton farm. It comes down into this and it decrafts them into bone meal. And then they go down in here to craft into bone blocks. So we convert bones to bone blocks with just one setup. So I'm going to unlock this so this hopper starts flowing. And basically we're just doing the inverse. We're leaving this hopper unlocked, but we're locking the input hopper while there's something in the table. So we can see there, you can see the redstone when it's going to unlock there. So that keeps it locked so it doesn't start filling up these extra slots, because this is a 1 to 3 recipe. So we have to actually leave that locked so that this has time to suck out all 3 items there at hopper speed. And then it's just going back down into the bottom table as bone meal and crafting the blocks. But same thing, we don't want it to suck out either this bone meal or white dye. So we have it locked until it reaches signal strength 15 and then goes down to the bottom chest. So here are a couple of block decrafters on their own. This is the original block decrafter I started off with. This is just a slightly better version. And by better, I mean a little bit less redstone dust. They both operate exactly the same speed, exactly the same. But we're going to see that a lot in this video. There is not just one way to do these auto crafting operations. A lot of these are going to have multiple ways, and you can do your own. And in fact, that's going to be kind of the point of this video, is to give you some examples to start off with, and then maybe give you some ideas to build your own. But by all means, you can come in here and grab your schematics if you like. So we can see all it's going to do, it leaves this hopper unlocked until there is anything inside that table. So signal strength 1 will then lock this hopper and give it time to suck out. So a redstone block is a 1 to 9 crafting operation. So we need to wait for that entire 9 to get sucked out of there before putting another block in. Here's a dustless version so that it's 1 wide tileable, and you can especially use this if maybe you have a 2 times hopper speed bone meal farm that you're using, like a tree farm or something like that, and you want to be able to keep up decrafting bone blocks into bone meal. So this top chest feeds both those crafting tables then, and they could both feed down into the same chest with their bone meal. This is definitely what I say your starting point of learning the auto crafting table should be. It is very redstone easy. These are just the simple ideas of locking hoppers and unlocking them at the right time, because that is going to be key in designing other auto crafting setups, is knowing how to control the input of the table and control the output. So with that being said, let's move on to something that starts using more than one ingredient, and let's go to rockets. So right here we have a flight duration 1 crafter, and as you know, that is 1 gunpowder and 1 paper. All we have in this scenario is we just have them both going in at hopper speed, and then once there's something in that table, we lock it. In this instance, we actually have right here, we have 3 redstone dust reaching to each of those hoppers. So we need signal strength 3, but because there are going to be 2 items going in at the same time through different hoppers, we're going to reach that signal strength 3 right off the bat. I'll go ahead and unlock this, and we can see it's just going to start flowing in one at a time, and then we just lock those input hoppers just to give it time to suck out those rockets. So this setup is then output hopper speed. We have a couple of different metrics we're going to end up talking about later on down the line with how fast it's going to go. So you have input hopper speed and output hopper speed. Input hopper speed is where it's going to be putting in the items at 8 game ticks each item. And then the output hopper speed is where it's going to be taking out an item every 8 game ticks. As soon as we move on to the flight duration 3, this gets a little more complex because now we need to actually have 3 gunpowder and 1 paper into here. We do have 4 sides we could feed in, so we could have 3 hoppers that are gunpowder and 1 that is paper and go based off of that and then lock it the same way. But I want to just do a little bit of a different implementation here. So what we have is when this reaches a certain signal strength, that's when it's going to be able to take out. So we're just blocking that signal strength off with this barrel here, the comparator on the side. But we have another comparator on the other side to just say when there's anything in there, when there's just one item in there, I want to get a piece of paper. So we have the paper here on the left, we have the gunpowder here on the right. I'm going to go ahead and unlock it and turn it on. Let's see what it's doing is as soon as it gets that piece of gunpowder in there, it moves the observer with the piston, and then it puts in that 1 piece of paper, and then we wait for this signal strength to get up high enough that it can actually take that out, and then we lock this hopper that way. So this side we're using a dropper, and we're using signal strength to get us our output that we want for that, and this side we're locking the hopper to stop it from inputting more while it sucks out those 3 items, because again, this is output hopper speed. And then our output is flight duration 3 rockets. These are a couple of rocket setups from the Syndicate server. So this one was from our rocket farm. This is where we had a creeper farm on one side and a sugarcane farm on the other side. And then we crafted the sugarcane into paper and we fed that in, and then the gunpowder from the creeper farm. And we just had it automatically create rockets and then load those into shulkers for us. This one is doing things a little bit different because you actually have 2 sets of inputs. You could have one side that has enough of an input to actually continue the crafting operation and one side that's not. So for instance, your gunpowder farm may not be running that well if you have someone come into the area and it's, loading up the mob cap in that area and you don't have enough gunpowder. So we just have a nice little AND gate here to say, I only want to run this if we have enough resources in both sides. So we have one side is the gunpowder, one side is the paper. And we can see we have plenty of paper in here, but we don't have enough gunpowder. So that means this side is locked, and it's then locking this hopper clock that we have right here. So it's just one item that goes back and forth, and it locks it, which every time that ticks over, then that powers this redstone right here, which then powers the crafting table. So we can power it just like a full block, which then powers both of these droppers to put an item into it. As far as output speed, we have hopper minecarts as well. So hopper minecarts can also take things out of there, and they work in the same way. They're just dumb. They just take out either from here if it's available or starting at the next available slot. But since a hopper minecart can take out 1 item every game tick, that means that as long as there aren't more than 8, then we can still take those out faster than hopper speed because the hopper is going to be every 8 game ticks. So what we have here is we have a hopper minecart that's just been nicely aligned so that it's over these 3 hoppers right here. This alignment also means it's not taking out from this dropper right here either. So we've just got it lined up against those fences so we can go into the hopper, but not anything else. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill this up with some gunpowder now so we can start seeing this running. We can see we don't even see those slots get filled because it's getting sucked out so fast. And then we're just turning that into a system that's going to take this in at hopper speed. So we just have 1 shulker loader and we have 3 hoppers running into that shulker. So basically this is a 3 times hopper speed shulker loader, and that can keep up with whatever the output of the farm would be. This is the same principle. This is just from the exit of the main base, the main storage area. So it's just a nice little rocket refuel station. Press the button and it spits out 32 rockets. All we have to do is input paper and gunpowder to keep it lit up, and then we have the lamps on the side here to show how full it is. These elevators bring the items up to this crafting center right here, and we have the same concept, but a little bit of a different setup. So first we make sure with this AND gate that we have enough of both ingredients to continue crafting operations, but this we're just based on hopper speed, because once again, we're taking it out faster, but we know that we're going to be more controlling of what that input is going to be. So we just need to say, you know what, I don't have enough gunpowder, I can turn off. We're not going to have to worry about just 1 gunpowder coming in at a time. And then all that's doing is that's filtering down into these chest lines here. So we have one here and one here. This keeps us at 2 times hopper speed. This system does still have a bottleneck because yes, it goes all the way down here. We have a row of hoppers here, the row of chests. So once again, 3 times hopper speed until we get down to right here. Here's our bottleneck. So technically it could bottleneck. The thing is there's so much back storage here and so little storage down here. It's just hoppers and droppers that we don't have to worry about that backing up. Yeah, same thing here. We just have it lined perfectly using those fences. So it's not going to suck out of these hoppers, but will suck out of the crafting table, but can still go down into the bottom 3 hoppers. Now you start getting into pistons, and this is a shaped recipe. So the rockets, those are shapeless. We didn't have to worry about fitting any particular shape in there. As long as there's 3 gunpowder and 1 paper, it's still going to produce a rocket. You know, something like pistons, those are shaped. So this is a quote unquote universal crafter. Basically, you just put in your items in the order that you want them to go into a crafting table. And we're just using the ordering of the hoppers here to control how it's going to go into that crafting table. The problem is something like comparators that do have blank slots in there, that wouldn't work for this setup. All we do is just take the items out, put them into the chest that we want them to appear once again in that slot. So that's the order. Now we have items filled into those droppers, and when we turn this on, it's just going to activate the observer line that's going to put them into the hoppers in the order that we want them to come in. I'm going to turn that on, and we're going to see it's going to just flow in the order we want it. Then it takes out the piston and sets off the line to set the next set of ingredients. And once again, all we're doing is we're just locking that hopper until it reaches signal strength 12. So we've taken a little bit of a turn here to make sure that we don't activate this piston before we want to, and then our output is pistons. Now this, in my opinion, if you have item scroller or something like that, is not that useful unless you want to do something like dispensers and you don't want to deal with the bow setup. You know, you can use this, but I don't know how practical this is. There are tons of mass crafters out there. I have a mass-ish crafter on my channel. Glotz just released a really good one for servers. So definitely check out mass crafters before you resort to something like this. This is from the Slime Farm on Syndicate, and this was designed by Glotz. This is a Tileable block crafter. So this is where the output of the Slime Farm is slime balls. We want to turn those all into blocks, but we need that to be tileable because we don't want to take up a bunch of extra space. The reason I say tileable is because this setup right here, we needed a signal coming into the side of a comparator to block it off at signal strength 15. This has nothing coming into the side of the comparators because there's just another comparator on the other side. But Glotz is using this really neat trick of the empty composter here to not update this comparator until it actually gets signal strength 15 out the back. So this is something I didn't know, but if you have a comparator reading out from a composter and you have signal strength 0 through 14 here, this comparator will remain off. As soon as it becomes signal strength 15, which, you know, at 15 we don't have to worry about bleed, then this will enable. That then turns off this torch. This was my implementation to spit out from the dropper. I can't say that this part right here is Glotz approved, but it works because then this turns off. This then goes down in signal strength and then activates and drops out the slime block into the water stream. So this is really nice for a big farm output because then you can take, you know, 100K, 200K, 300K farm, put it through these block crafters, and then you have significantly less output to actually worry about shulker loading or anything like that. And as you can see, we also get filters fitted on the top of here, so we can filter out the slime balls just in case we were to get like gold nuggets or something, because that would then break it. Because if you have slime balls here and then a gold nugget right here, you're going to have no possible output from that recipe. So those were some of the basic setups. Let's start moving on to where things get more complicated. So let's take, for example, shears. Shears have a really weird crafting recipe. Shears need to be 2 iron ingots in a diagonal, and that means that you need to, once again, fill that in properly. So if you were to just put a hopper on there, that would just make you heavy-weighted pressure plates. So we need to have some sort of dummy item. So we have that there, and then we would put in some dummy items there, and then there is our shape that we want for the ingots, and then we have to take out these dummy items, and then we can get our shears. Luckily for us, shears can also be this diagonal, which is much easier because then all we need to do is we just put in 1 dummy, 1 iron ingot, and then 1 dummy, 1 iron ingot, and then we just have to take out the 2 dummies and boom, we've got it. So that's what this setup right here is doing. So this is where things get a little more complicated. So basically each time it clocks, what we have here is we have two droppers. We have one with our iron ingots and one with our dummy items. And basically we want it to feed in one on each cycle. So each cycle it's going to feed in one from each, and then it's going to repeat the cycle, feed in another set. But then we need to actually be able to take those out. Here's the problem. If we just have a blank hopper minecart underneath this crafting table, it's going to start taking out from here because it has no recipe here. So it's going to take out this item, and then it's going to take out this. What we're going to do with some of these is we're just going to be able to replace this with a item filter underneath, because the item that's going to be coming out is not one of the items going into here. However, we have shears, which are unstackable. So even if we were to add in hopper minecarts with an item filter, those shears are still unstackable. So we need to have a basically blank slot in a minecart to be able to take that out. So I'm going to turn this on. This is going to go kind of quick. Again, maybe slow this down, but we're going to see that's going to put those in, and it's taking everything out really fast. So I'm going to slow that down. So we have our first set of items in, second items go in, and you could just barely see those sticks get taken out first. The way we're doing that is this side right here with the dummy sticks, that has open slots only for sticks in it. So we can only take sticks out when it gets pushed under there. And then we bring that minecart back on top of the hopper, and we could make that hopper an item filter. But the nice thing is if we have a full hopper, that already acts as an item filter for us. So we just face it into a dropper that is then full, and that dropper just spits out 2 items each cycle, which then 2 items come out of this hopper, which means that it can take 2 items out of this minecart when it comes back, but then it can't empty out anymore. So this just basically is a hopper minecart item filter, because then this is then just refeeding the same. So if we follow this path, so this dropper with sticks goes into this dropper, goes into this dropper, goes back into this dropper to feed the crafting table. That way, when this minecart gets sent underneath, even though it's completely empty, the only thing left in there is the shear recipe. So we can see there's a brief moment there. That iron nugget, that was just a little visual glitch because I'm running so slow. But we can see there was a shear there just briefly, and then that gets spit into the chest here. These two right here, these are a couple of setups for sea lanterns. Now, once again, sea lanterns have a really weird recipe because they need to fill in that, cross shape. But luckily, we can just have a normal item filter underneath because the crystals and shards are what go in for the recipe, but it outputs the sea lantern, and we don't need to do any dummy items. So we put in all 9 items, it makes a sea lantern. We take out that sea lantern, so we just have your bulk standard item filter here. And when it's available, it will just take out a sea lantern then. But you can see we have to fill that in a really weird way. So it's a little bit of an observer mess here, but this is all designed so that it will take out from that side. We do have a little bit of a check here to see, do we have enough materials to continue on? So on this side we do, so that's why this torch is off. This side we do as well, so this torch is also off. If I was to empty out this chest, then we'd see that would actually turn that back on. And now even when I turn on the system, it's not going to run. So this is more of a setup for, like I said, you have inconsistent income. So directly the output of a farm, it's checking to see, do I have enough to continue the crafting operations? But once we do have enough to continue, it's then going to run and insert everything into that table in the order that we need it. So once again, that kind of weird cross-shaped pattern. And we can see very briefly that is ready to be sucked out. So that hopper underneath with the item filter can suck out the sea lantern as soon as it's ready. And this setup in the back, this is doing the same thing. So it's almost the same redstone here. We just have a little bit of a different input system. So this is where you just manually input your crystals and your shards. So I put in my crystals and my shards, and then I can turn on the system and it's going to do the same thing. We do still have the checks in there to make sure that you don't run out of one material before you run out of the other. But this is really more for, if you want to have this next to your base, you don't want to have it running all the time. On to the next one, another unstackable, minecarts, which once again has kind of a weird recipe shape. So minecart needs that U shape to it in order to be able to craft a minecart. But once again, we can't just have blank slots in order because it's going to go left to right, top to bottom. So we would need to input actually this first slot, then a dummy item, and then we can do the next 4 slots. You can see this redstone is much simpler than the sea lantern though, because this is nice and easy. We just need to take a double comparator signal out. So you can either do that by having a comparator on each side, but in this case, we're using minecarts coming in from each side. Again, one to take out the minecart, one to take out the dummy item. So all we have is we have comparators just stacked up here because this comparator will read into this one. And then this one, we can block off the signal. So this one is say, okay, I'm done. I have enough for a crafting operation. Let's take it out. Let's tick off these pistons and get everything running there. But this one has no signal on the side. So if anything is inside of here, it's going to put out a dummy item. So I can see right here, if I just put in my 1, I get my dummy item spit into there. All we had to do is spit it in faster than hopper speed, and then we don't have to worry about controlling the actual iron ingot input. With that, we can just do that based off of here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this back out so we can see it running. And I'm going to turn this on. We're going to see that this is just going to be ready to flow in. But it's going to fill in that pattern that we need. And that's why you can see that gold nugget goes in before the hopper would drop in another iron ingot. And then this one comes in, takes out the dummy item. This one comes in, takes out the minecart. And then just to make sure that we have time for that to take over, we have just a tiny little pulse extender here to lock this hopper for a little bit extra. Make sure it's not putting in another iron ingot in this slot right here after the dummy gets taken out. Moving on, same idea with dummy items. We have chest and furnace crafters. So chests are the square of planks. Furnaces are the square of cobblestone. So here we have a block decrafter. You can put in your logs and decraft them into planks. When we unlock these, it then feeds in the planks at hopper speed, and we have, once again, the same concept. So we have a comparator at the right point. So in this case, when we reach that 4 slot there, so we want plank, 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 and then a dummy item. And in this case, we're going to just use a item filter underneath here, but in the same concept, it's not the normal comparator locks a hopper. We just, once again, we have a full hopper, we have a full dropper that is going into, so it can't feed out anymore. We can control the output, but then we're going to actually use a chest as the dummy item. So what happens is we put planks in here, we put a chest in there, we take out that chest, and then we can take out this chest. So that's why we just have the single filtered. That does mean that we're going to have 2 chests coming out for each operation, and because we're using the chest as the dummy item, we need to recycle those back in. So all we have here is we have a dropper that's getting fired at the right time, so that as these items are coming in, one is going to go out of the dropper and into the chest output, and one is going to go back into the hopper underneath and get ready to go back into the crafting table. So I'll go ahead and unlock this. We can see how the crafting table is going to work here. So we can see, there we go. We have our chest coming in, and it's happening once again really fast. Let me slow down. Go. We have the last plank about to come in, and then it sucks out that first chest and the second chest. Once again, that button there is just kind of a visual glitch on the client side here. And then we can see that 2 chests are going to get spit out, go into that hopper, and then it activates so that 1 chest gets spit into here and 1 gets recycled back into the crafting system. Same idea with the furnace, except for the fact that we can do this AFK, so we can use El Mango's cobblestone generator to actually generate the cobblestone that goes into here. So let me go ahead and turn this on. We can see this is going to start generating cobblestone, and we don't have to really worry about clocking the speed input, because we can just know that once this is system strength 15 is when we want to perform the outtake. But same thing underneath, hopper minecart is turned into a filter just by having the output that's filled up with furnaces, so that's all it can take out. Redstone is pretty much the same as we have over there, but we're just using a furnace as the dummy item, so that once again, we just use that same hopper filter. This setup is for crafting note blocks. Now, I showed earlier that we accidentally made a note block in one of the crafting recipes, but here we just have 2 types of input. We have logs, so we have logs here that gets decrafted into planks, and then we have an input for our redstone dust, and that's once again just working off of the same concept idea. Once we have our 4 items in here, then we have enough signal strength that we then want to release a redstone dust in there using the dropper, and then we fill up the rest with planks. We get out our output signal that is 15 that we're ready to take it out, and then we just have an item filter under here, which takes out the note box, and which is also making me realize why did I lock this?
A few moments later.
I remember why. So there is a little bit of a caveat with this implementation. If you have a hopper underneath that is unlocked and looking to suck out items, and then you have another crafting recipe come in, even if that recipe is no longer valid, it's still trying to take that out, because this hopper is constantly trying to take out of here, but it's full, so it can't actually take that out. That's why we go ahead and we lock this hopper, just so that it's not trying to take it out when other recipes become available. So that's something to keep in mind. If you see that your crafting table is like trying to make pressure plates or buttons because you have something coming in first, just make sure that output hopper gets locked until you're actually ready to take it out of there. So we can see, even though it's going through all those different recipes now, the only thing it's taking out is the note block successfully, because we're making sure that that hopper isn't trying to suck out from the bottom. So that's technically something that, you know, you wouldn't think Redstone would try and do. It's a little caveat with this mod, but just keep that in mind. Here we have a couple of honey block crafters. So honey blocks are really annoying because it takes in that 2x2 of honey bottles. So we have one version here in the front that your only input is those honey bottles. This would be a manual input setup. This is the one I prefer. This is what I actually ended up building on Syndicate, because your honey farm is probably not outputting at exactly hopper speed. That would be a big farm and you'd have to calculate that perfectly. Doubt it's going to happen. So this is meant for more slow input. And what we're doing is, once again, same type of thing. We have the honey bottles coming in just whenever they're available, but we have to once again fill up that 2x2 grid exactly. So we need something to then fill in this slot right here. Luckily for us, the output is actually going to be glass bottles once you make the honey block. The way we're going to fill this up is we have, you know, one honey bottle coming in there. That goes into the first slot. Once again, we have nothing trying to suck out here, so it doesn't suck out the sugar. And then I'm just going to show this manually so we can actually see it happening. The next one comes in through the hopper, and then it inserts a glass bottle. And then once we have our next two, we need to first suck out this. I haven't got it quick. So we can see there, first it sucked out the glass bottle, then it sucked out the honey block, then it sucked out the extra glass bottles left over. And then once again, we just have same kind of filters here. So we just have filters that are filled up hoppers, so they can't suck out any more items, going into filled droppers. Same thing with the honey block. So it doesn't mean that there's a little bit of pre-filling you have to do on this, but that means that we can exactly control when it's going to output. So we just want to output one honey block, so we can take one in there, and when this minecart moves over that, we can see that's ready to accept some honey blocks. We're only going to get one output, so just when the crafting operation is complete, we then empty out one slot in here to be able to empty out one slot in there. But then this needs to empty out 5 glass bottles, because we got 1 from the dummy item and 4 from the crafting operation. We need to get 1 back in, and we need to get 4 out. So the empty bottles, they come in through this hopper line right here and go into this dropper. This dropper then feeds down into here. And then we just have this little observer clock here, so that we can eject 4 items out of here. And that means, so all 5 items went into here, 4 came back out here. And then we could just send this through water stream back to our honey farm, the empty bottle input. So we can make a AFK honey block farm. We don't have to worry about messing with how many bottles we have backed up. We just need a little bit of buffer on those bottles in order to keep that filled. Same thing we had before, where we're taking 2 comparator signals. So once we reach that signal strength 3 of those 2 items, that's when we want to activate the dropper to input the glass bottle. So we can see here, we're activated there, but this isn't activated yet because this is looking for signal strength 8, which would be our 5 items. And then that actually ticks everything off. We have a little bit, once again, of a pulse extender here to make sure that we don't get an extra glass bottle in while this piston setup is pushing in. And then the 4 glass bottles get shot in the water stream to flow back up to our input. This is for 2x2 recipes. You'll notice quite a line here, and that's because this was one that I originally designed, which was hopper speed input. So, you know, things like magma blocks, honeycomb blocks, that type of thing. So you need to get it in that 2x2 recipe. So we have slot there, and then we need to fill in a dummy item, and then slot there, slot there. And this works fine, but again, that's only hopper speed input. So if we, you know, making magma blocks, for example, like this is set up to, that magma cream is going in at hopper speed, but then it's coming out at, you know, a quarter of hopper speed. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on this clock, and we're going to see that's going to run off. So we're putting in magma cream at hopper speed. This one doesn't count towards it because it's just our dummy item. And then we have, once again, we have the same setup where we just have a hopper minecart underneath that's able to suck out 1 dummy and 1 crafted item, because these ones we don't have to worry about like all the extra bottles like in the honey. It's just 1 item output for our crafting recipe, and then we're just controlling what the droppers are outputting so that we can empty up those hoppers underneath. Once again, we have a little bit of pre-fill. This right here, this could technically be some other type of dummy item, so it would require a little bit less of a pre-fill, but once again it still requires a pre-fill. Now I wasn't that happy with this. So we can see, you know, you can craft 2x2 recipes. So here we're crafting magma blocks. Here we're crafting snow blocks. So I'll turn this one on. We can see we're going to do once again the same thing. Just have a dummy item in there. And since the crafting output is different than the crafting input, we don't have to worry about that too much because we just have our output here with our dummy and the item we want to craft. It's still slow. So I once again messaged Glotz and was like, hey, you remember that 2x2 crafter? Do you have something better? And he's like, no, not right now, but give me like 5 minutes.
A few moments later.
So here's the difference between Strom's 5 minutes and Glotz's 5 minutes. This is faster. This is 50% hopper speed. So look at that. It's going much faster than the other setup I've got. It plays a cool little song you can hear in the background. But then Glotz sends me this that is hopper speed. We did have one dropper that wasn't keeping up, so I made a few changes to it. So these were my changes, then these were his changes. So this one right here is output hopper speed for a 2x2 crafting recipe. The downside of this is it means you need to have 4 times input of whatever your material is. So you need to have 4 times input speed of magma cream. So we have our 4 times speed going in by just going into 2 droppers. Let me go ahead and turn on his contraption. Yeah, it's a little faster than mine, as in significantly faster. But once again, working off of the same concept, so that output is just based on what we have available in the minecart for space by recycling the dummy items back into a full dropper, and then the output into a full dropper as well. So here's our output. So what he's using a nifty, and I'm gonna turn this off so we can talk to each other because I can't hear myself think right now. He's using this comparator clock right here so that he gets a 4 game tick signal off of this. But then here we're using that repeater that's going on and off at a slower clock. So let me just slow that down. So you can see this observer is getting significantly more inputs than this observer. So that we can control those dropper inputs that are going in. So this dropper right here needs to get kicked off 2 times. This dropper over on this side needs to get kicked off 2 times. This one only needs to get kicked off once. And that's how we end up with this. So you can see, even when I have this slowed down, basically these are going in at the same time. So we have 4 ticks, and then out. 4 ticks, 4 ticks out. 4 ticks, 4 ticks out. 4 ticks, 4 ticks out. This is the best song Glotz has ever written, in my opinion. I'm just kidding. I'll probably leave this in the world download because this was my clunkier version of getting it to feed into that dropper coming in the back of the crafting table. Let me just pop that out so we can see that. So this dropper right here needed to keep up. But yeah, use this one. Let's just put some there and maybe a little one right in there. That should help get rid of it. Let's do that. I'm kidding. I'm going to leave these in the world download if you want to look at them and get ideas for yourself. But if you're going to build a 2x2 crafter and you've got a fast farm that's doing some fast output, definitely use Glotz's version here. Now, I did mention early on in the video, and if I didn't, I've been recording this over a period, so I don't remember, but I did not design all of these. So these ones right here are Autocrafters from Ilmango's Peaceful series. So this is a crafting setup that can make either droppers, dispensers, or observers. And here you have your raw material inputs that shows what you have available. And this is one for pistons or sticky pistons. So these are really cool because these are really complex systems because you can switch between what you want to do. But once again, this feeds itself. So if it runs low on cobblestone to make those, it starts feeding itself more cobblestone. So you just have the input here of your wood, your redstone, and your iron, and then of course your slime as well. There's a series of crafting tables in here. So here it's decrafting iron. Here it's, I believe this was redstone and logs. And then it's using the order that it inserts there to actually create those at significantly faster than the other version I showed. But this can once again just craft oodles and oodles of stuff. because you have a chest input of logs, which are 4 per. This is redstone blocks, which is 9 per. Iron blocks 9 per. Slime blocks 9 per. And then once again, it is just feeding itself with its own cobblestone. So your input is much cleaner than the other system over there. This is nice. And then same thing here. They're using a station that are going to use similar ingredients to be able to switch between what you want to craft. So here, let's craft ourselves some observers. Switch over there. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about how these systems work because, again, this is El Mango's design. It was part of this Peaceful series. Definitely go check that out. They decided in the middle of Peaceful series to have some fun and use the auto-crafting setups. And boy, did they make some awesome auto-crafting. They did cool stuff. So I'm going to leave these in the world download just because the Peaceful series world download is already available. But once again, not going to talk too much about it. This is just for a good reference. If you say, hey, what Autocrafters do I got? Let me check out this world, and boom, there's a bunch of them here. Now let's get back onto some ideas of my designs. So now let's get on to TNT. So TNT is that X recipe shape where you have an X of gunpowder and then kind of the diamond of sand. So it gets really weird. So the first one we could do just by having it go in hopper order. So we have gunpowder, and then, oops, that was an accident there, and then sand, and then gunpowder, and then sand, gunpowder, sand. You can see where I'm going here, just alternating, and then gunpowder. Problem is, on the next cycle, it's now going to be, okay, now I'm ready for sand, and then it's going to start doing it in the opposite pattern that we want. So all we have is we just have a little bit of delay that's added on to make sure that we are not inputting that extra sand. So we have sand on one side, gunpowder on one side, just the 2 hoppers going in, and then we'll take a look at what it's going to do there. Son of a...
A few moments later.
As you can see, as I was saying, first try designing this, totally first try, no issues at all. It just crafts TNT, didn't have to do any redesign at all. Definitely don't go back and watch the video. Yeah. What we're doing here is we're just delaying the input of that sand. So both on the on-off switch as well as the input, we're just making sure that once we get to that point, we're locking that hopper and we don't unlock it until that first gunpowder that can come in. But we're only doing that based on hopper speed. So we're just doing this timing based instead of actually quote unquote controlling it. So we're just locking this hopper so it can't input into the crafting table until we're ready for it. So this will be really nice, especially if you're on maybe a server that they don't like using TNT duping. I know it might be kind of weird that you could do auto crafting tables, but not TNT duping. But hey, each to their own. There are a lot of tech servers out there coming up with their rules for their own reasons. I personally, once I have a way to farm sand other than gravity duping, I also like the idea of not TNT duping anymore. So then this server, like on Syndicate, where we have auto crafting tables, that'd be really nice because then you can just craft up TNT and have it face into your dispenser there and use that to set off the TNT for your farms. Here we have everyone's favorite. It is concrete. Obviously, you need concrete so that you can build things. Because I think there was recently a rule implemented that you can't build without yellow concrete. Pretty sure that's universal. Everyone in Minecraft knows it. Pretty sure. But we're operating off of the same principle. We have sand on one side, gravel on the other side. We're just feeding into a hopper at hopper speed. And luckily for us, it's not really a shaped recipe. So then we also have dye. And in this case, we're using dandelions for our dye. So we decraft our dandelions into dye. And then that goes into a dropper. And we just inject that in at the right time. And then we enable this hopper minecart. Now, luckily for us, the crafting table can actually hold on to a partial recipe here while still having items here. What happens is when we hit signal strength 15, actually in this case we're going a little bit early, so when we hit 13, just because of this delay that we have here, we want to make sure that we give it enough time so that it can suck out all 8 of the concrete, but then doesn't suck in any of the sand or gravel that's going to be coming in. Words are hard today. Oh, man. And then so that we can keep up with that, we also have this going into the dropper at 2 times speed. So that hopper is coming out into the hopper minecart. Dude, okay. You know what? I quit talking. The rest of this video is going to be silent. Okay, enough of that silent crap. Here we have a setup that we can do both fences and fence gates. So these can be kind of annoying to craft because of the way that the planks and the sticks work, but that means that we just have two inputs. We have sticks and we have planks. You could add on some decrafters here so that logs are feeding in and then feed both sides with both sticks and planks. In this case, we just gone with the sticks and planks. Basically, what we need to do is we need to reverse the direction of the input for both fences and fence gates. So if we do sticks on the outside, planks in the middle, we get fence gate. If we do planks on the outside and sticks in the middle, then we get our fences. So both the same input, we just need to determine in which order it's going to go into. So basically what we have here is this is split down the middle. One side makes fence gates, one side makes fences, and we just have a switcher determine which way that's going to go. So right here, if I hit this note block, it's going to switch between the two. See right there, boom, just switches between the two by allowing this input to go into the concrete block there, activate those note blocks, and then the rest is all based off a timer. So I'm going to turn this on. We're going to see down on the crafting table here, we're going to get our fence gates. And we can see we don't actually see anything in there because we have this ready to take it out whenever it's done. And this one is just timing based, so there's no filter there. It's just unlocking the hopper minecart using the activator rail at just the right moment to be able to suck it out. And the reason we're still using that is because also with the fences, those are a 3 output recipe. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to that. And we can see in here, now those fences, we can see those a little better because it's got to take 3 out of there. So that's why we're still using this so that we can operate the rest at the same speed. And all it's done, we can see, is just reversing the place that we have this lamp here, because the lamp can give us that double signal from an observer input to an observer output. But on this side, it's there, and so we can see this observer is just going to get 1 signal, but then this will get 2. And that's controlling what order these are going to go in then. Okay, we're ending a little bit weird here. This probably should have been earlier in the series, but slabs. So slabs, just 3 planks make 6 slabs. And all we just have is, once again, we have something that can handle the output speed faster than the input speed. So this is hopper input speed. We have planks just going in, and then we just, once again, unlock it at just the right time to be able to take those slabs out. Now, final 2, I'm doing these together a little bit for a meme. So this one right here is a hoe crafter. This is a boat crafter. This is probably going to be very useful. I don't know why you'd need to craft that many boats. But basically, the boat crafter it's just the minecart crafter, but with planks instead of iron ingots. So, but this one is nice because you can get hoe output from plank input or log input and iron input. And so if you have a farm where you're going to have a player or a bot that's going to be doing a lot of hoeing, instead of having to worry about to mend those with, feeding them XP, then you can just feed a new hoe to the player, and this can allow you to craft those automatically. But once again, we have that weird shaped crafting recipe. So we have sticks there and iron there, but that means we first need to get in the 2 iron, and then we need to get in 2 dummy items and a stick, 2 dummy items and a stick, take out the 4 dummy items, and then we can take out the hoe, which is once again unstackable, so we can't just use a filter. So we have same thing here. This hopper minecart that gets pushed under is our filters, and then, our dummies, and then this hopper minecart right here is just empty and ready to accept whatever's in there. So we need to make sure that we clear out this table so there's just the hoe recipe at just the right time. And let me go ahead and turn this on. And so we can see that's exactly what's happening. First, it starts out by putting in 2 iron ingots, and it puts in 2 dummies and a stick, 2 dummies as a stick, and then that hopper minecart gets pushed under to take all those dummies out in 4 game ticks, and boom. Then we have our hoe. Controlling that by doing a little bit of kind of wonkiness. You got to be careful here because we got to make sure we don't actually QC this piston and push it under too early. We have this note block goes off. These observers both go off. And then we have another 2 ticks, and then it sets it off again. Just waiting enough time for that dropper cooldown. And then we just have another clock over here that's going to control when we send in those other items. It gets a little weird, and I know there was a hoe crafter on the Peaceful series. We go check out those Autocrafters there because they're going to be a little bit cleaner than mine. But I still like doing these. I have fun designing Autocrafters, so that's why I'm including it. And then, of course, I guess I got to actually make a boat to go ahead with the meme. All right, we're making boats. See boats there. Boats are coming out of there. Haha, Strom did a funny thing. 69's a funny number. Ha ha ha. If you're still watching at this point, I appreciate you watching. This was a long recording process because it kind of dragged on. So I came back to some things. I definitely got everything right first try. There were no TNT Autocrafters that I screwed up. And decided to take a break and go back to recording. But thanks so much for watching. Once again, World Download will be down in the video description, so you can download these, check these out for yourself. Once again, make modifications, take schematics, whatever you want to do there. But I will catch you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.